Oh, hello there. I was just sharpening. Well, I wasn't sharpening. I was honing my knife on my steel, something that I like to do all the time. And you've seen me on this fantastic show. By the way, welcome to it, AZ Cooks, Instagram Live Edition. I am Andrew Zimmern. You've seen me many times working with my Shun knives, one of our sponsors, along with the good folks at Florida Cognac Rum. But you've seen me take out my steel and run my knife across it a couple times. And the reason is that even when I'm cutting something like celery, which I'm going to cut a lot of today, I think, I'm taking out little burrs on my knife. When I'm working with a knife and it's really, really sharp, when it dulls out, what really happens is little microscopic pieces of metal go like this. So if you look at it under a microscope, it goes from looking smooth and pointy to having these little burrs on it. So you're just removing those burrs so the knife slides through things better. That's really what sharpening is. It is different, or honing, whatever, you get what I'm saying. It is different than when I put a new edge on my knife. That's when the knife gets so dull that it doesn't matter how many times I run it across the steel, it's never going to get sharp. And I will show you after I'm done cutting some of my stuff what I mean by that. Welcome. It's Firecracker Shrimp Day, and yes, I was making these for years before they went on to Chili's $5 menu or whatever that is. You know, this was one of those dishes that I guess ushered in, and I certainly wasn't the first to think of it, far from it. But this, to my mind, was one of those dishes that sort of ushered in the whole chef stoner food movement, which I never liked that as a concept or a name. And here's why. I thought it was disrespectful to chefs, and I thought it was disrespectful to people who just enjoyed craveable, delicious food, because what was called chef stoner food were just dishes that were created by chefs that they would make when a restaurant is closed for other cooks or chefs. I mean, it was just super craveable food. And there are restaurants in America where the whole menu is made up of that kind of stuff. And all this is, you know, taking, you know, hot wings and giving them the shrimp treatment with a little more bespoke zhuzh. And I can't get enough of this. It's just delicious. Who doesn't like the idea of spicy, buttery shrimp with celery sticks and homemade blue cheese dressing? And I know cheese and shrimp don't go together, but you try this and then you tell me. And you can always make your own ranch dressing, by the way. Ranch dressing tip. My French Kiss seasoning is somewhere over there. These are my spice blends from Badia, but if French Kiss is over there, if you mix that with equal parts of mayonnaise and sour cream and you know, mix it with a little bit of red wine vinegar and lemon juice and let it sit for 2 hours in your fridge, it turns into the best and most delicious ranch dressing you've ever tasted. And it's dip consistency, so when you toss sturdy greens on it, they hold together, or dip things into it, it holds together. And if you want to loosen it, just a few tablespoons of buttermilk or 1 tablespoon of water, and it just thins out enough to go on like baby greens and things like that. But I digress. Our oil is hot, and we are making firecracker shrimp, so let's get down to it, shall we? First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make my dressing, because I want that sort of ready to go. I take a big bowl. Let me move my shrimp out of the way. I should have done this in reverse. And I put in equal parts of sour cream and mayonnaise. Recipe, of course, as always, is at andrewzimmern.com. I'm going to add my vinegar, my Worcestershire sauce, some minced dill. Some people use parsley. I happen to love, I'm addicted to dill and veined cheeses of all kinds. And for those of you who've been watching a long time, you might remember a dish that I do with salmon, blue cheese, dill, and lemon juice that is out of this world. You can look that up on andrewzimmern.com. But all I want to do is mix those together. I'm not worried about salt, but I do want black pepper. And the reason I don't need salt is that there's a lot in the blue cheese, and there's going to be plenty in the hot sauce. So I don't really think about salt for this. And then all I do, and I leave this here, I don't put it in the sink because I'm going to need it later. I have broken pieces of blue cheese. I think the recipe calls for a half a cup. And what I want to do is some of those, I want to leave some chunks, right? We all like the chunks. But I also want to make sure that some of the blue cheese breaks up into that liquid. That's why I have a really big bowl. I'm always telling people, don't work small, work big. Put a little amount in a big bowl. And I'm using the whisk the same way that I would use a potato masher on potatoes. And you know what? I think I am good to go. We will see. Oh yeah, perfect. Now, if you like a milder flavor, don't use less by volume. Use a milder blue cheese. Use like Cambozola, which is only like half blue cheese. Well, it's a blue cheese triple cream. It just has more cream in it. I can break up pieces of this. I actually love, oh my God. There is so much bad blue cheese dressing in this world that when you taste one that's really, really good and yummy and homemade, I'm surprised myself. I haven't made this in, well, since, I don't know, July. It's delicious. It's bright, but it has really, really good blue cheese flavor. We did not use a super fancy one. This is Maytag Blue. Well, it is, no, I wouldn't call it fancy. This is cave ripened from Iowa. It's a superb blue cheese. But let me show you something. We bought this at a supermarket. And this supermarket happens to have a good-sized cheese section. So they wrap and chill their cheese, I guess what I would call an acceptable way. But I would encourage you to buy cheese from places that don't wrap their cheese, because when you get a temperature fluctuation, like it's sitting out while they're wrapping a stack of them and then they refrigerate it, you can get little pieces of perspiration, moisture, and that causes cheese to become ammoniated. So when I unwrap this blue cheese, this has a nice sweet blue cheese smell, but how many times have you unwrapped a blue cheese or a bloomed mold cheese like brie or camembert that you bought in plastic, or a piece of it in plastic, only to find that it had ammoniated? With me, it's fairly frequent. It happens about 50% of the time, and you know, I'm all the way home and then I have to return cheese because I spent, you know, good money on it. I would encourage people, if you get skunked with your blue cheese, go to your cheese purveyor and tell them, stop wrapping the cheese and letting that temperature fluctuation happen. It ruins cheese. Cheese is alive. Cheese is an exercise in controlled spoilage. So, oh, it's so good. By all means, try to buy cheese from a real cheese shop where they cut it to order, and you will have much better success. Okay, so, got that. I have egg and buttermilk that I beat together, and I let my shrimp sit in that for, I don't know, about an hour. It doesn't take a long time. We're not trying to let the buttermilk permeate for, you know, a long time the way I might with chicken overnight. I'm just trying to get a little bit of liquid glaze on top of it. And what I do when I want to be really quick about this and efficient, because I've got people clamoring for this or the game is about to start, because this is a fantastic dinner or game day appetizer. I started it as a game day appetizer, and now my kid just wants me to make it every time I see him. My oil is already heated. My butter for my sauce is already melted in a microwave, and I just put it in a warm place in the kitchen so it doesn't solidify again, right? Which is back there on the stove. And then what I do, I take a bag with my cornstarch By the way, you can use cornstarch. You can mix potato starch and tapioca flour. You can mix cornstarch and all-purpose flour. Lots of different ways to skin that cat. But just like the fried chicken method, you can do this in a paper bag. I just like shaking this up. And the reason is that I use less cornstarch. I waste less this way as well. And then all I do, try to find a tong. A man in search of a pair of tongs. I know I've got them somewhere. Do you know something doesn't really? Oh, Madeline just pointed over there. They're over there. Oh, there they are. All right. And the reason I want a tong is I just want to shake them loose so that I don't get huge clumps of this. Now, I should tell you, I took these shrimp out of the fridge a half hour, 40 minutes ago. Why did I do that? Well, it's a very simple reason. I took them out of the fridge that long ago because I wanted them to come to room temperature so that when I put them in, my oil has only dropped 15 degrees. That was what I was doing, leaning over. I wanted to check my oil.
What temperature was it at to begin with?
I put it at about 390 because these are frying for a very short amount of time. 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. So if we started at 375 and your shrimp are cold and it drops to 280, they're never going to get crisp, ever, right? But those have dropped from 390 to 360, and I think that's where they're going to stay, and that's with room temperature shrimp, right? If your oil's too hot, it'll explode. If your oil is too hot, you're going to burn your shrimp before they're cooked. But all of that noise is not batter frying. All of that noise is water leaving the shrimp. And it is not, because I have lots of pepper in this dish, lots of pepper in the hot sauce, lots of salty things in there. So it's very, very important. And my hot shrimp are going to go in here very soon. So I'm going to add my hot sauce. It's basically equal parts of hot sauce and butter. Those have been in there about 3 minutes. Let's check a random. Oh, I mean, look at those. And they are brittle like glass. I mean, that's hard, brittle, crispy. So I just want to make sure that I get a little more moisture off. I want it to quiet down a little. Why? I don't want it to steam off its batter, right? Now, some people take one of these and do this in big piles. I think it's easier than tong retrieval. Whoop, I have one stuck behind my candy thermometer. Look at how beautiful this is. I'm going to show you how to trim these as well. Uh-oh. Let's free that little son of a gun. And it goes right into my big bowl. Why? Because I want to toss this. And then, boy, I hope I'm okay. I have a big business dinner tonight. And then, what would I, I'm going to take a spoon with slots in it. I mean, this is so good. And I'm going to put it into a bowl like this. And you can serve this as a fancy main dish, or you can just keep loading it up. Right? I'll put 30 shrimp in a tower in this bowl and let people pick away at it. And I'm going to wipe this up. And then we're going to take a little ladle and we're going to make a little bit of that. And then I'm going to take some celery and I want to cut it in equal lengths. See how I did it? I just matched it up. My first cut is in half and half again. Bisect everything. Nature will do the rest. That way you have halves and halves, and you're going to, without getting into analysis paralysis, have really nice celery sticks. You don't need to get too crazy and out of hand. I shouldn't have sharpened the knife is so sharp. And then just stick those there. Super nice. If you're lucky enough like me to have some leaves, put some leaves on there. I love celery leaves. I save them in the freezer and I stir fry with them. But do this. And that is, I mean, that's as good as food gets. Now, lucky for me, I can just dunk this right in there. That combo is better than chicken. I'm sorry, it is. Hot sauce, butter, shrimp, and blue cheese. Put a little celery kicker. Is better than chicken. Whoops. And it's not too spicy. A lot of flavor. People always ask me all the time you can use whatever hot sauce you like. For all-purpose cooking and things like this, I use Crystal. It's the best. All right. While we're here, these are batons. You can do a lot of things with them. Stir fry them, whatever. You can turn them into traditional dice. Traditional dice is 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. Suitable for soup, right? If you want to get super fancy, and some people want to with celery, you see the way the celery is set up? You can cut it with the tip of a knife into smaller strips, stack that, and we can make alumettes, matchsticks. And I put my knife down on the tip and push it through. Knife tip down on the board, push it through. Knife tip down on the board, push it through. And I have these beautiful alumettes, which is French for matchstick, right? Once I have those matchsticks, if you're really into this kind of thing, maybe you want to decorate some Chinese wontons with some celery brunoise. This is brunoise, which is also called micro dice. And that's how we get from batons to dice and from allumette or matchstick to brunoise. And the reason they have French names is because the French were the ones who codified this for cooks in the West. Okay? So there's lots of different cutting techniques. that you can learn from, the Chinese butcher chickens differently than the French do. There's no right or wrong way. There's lots of different ways to achieve different cuts. I just showed you the very, very basics. Now, after all of that celery cutting, this is still sharp, but I always, out of habit, do this again. It's why I keep a steel here. It's why in my house, it's in the drawer where I keep my knives, and I pull it out. If I want to, well, I'll show you we've showed you how to butcher shrimp a lot. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But I get this question all the time. Is it worthwhile to do this?
The burner is still on.
Oh, my burner is still on? I would, thank God, I almost burnt down the house. That was a Talking Heads joke. All right. Brown first, then blue. Blue is these are Shun blocks. The blue is the same grit on here, and then you finish with white, which is the smoothest. You can just put this on something that won't move. This one has never been used before. Mine has kind of a groove in it because I'm a right-hander, and that's fine. You just keep using it the same way. Most supermarkets in America will take your knives in, usually at the butcher area. We'll sharpen your knives, and they go away for a week, and they come back, and they have an edge put on them, and that's because a professional puts them on a wheel. It's the difference between putting a new edge on your knives is the same way that some cooks just like to cook with bacon and others like to make their own bacon. So if you're a make your own bacon person, if you're a culinary hobbyist, you're really into it, you should learn how to go. I should wet this so it doesn't move. At the same pace from the front of the blade to the back. And if you notice, I start at this end and I wind up at that end. That takes more practice than you think. And going it the other way, you can see why mine is scanted. I'm a righty. So the left-handed side is always a little funky for me. Now, I happen to think that the trickiest part of this is holding it at, between 17 and 25 degrees or something like that, but it's basically a finger. That's the best way I know how to describe it. Anywhere you are, it's like a finger. If you lean your knife against your finger, that's the right degree. Don't get caught up in like squinting at the video online, but I know they have these on Shun's website. And I think we have don't we have it on ours? Didn't I do a knife sharpening tutorial? I feel like we have it on ours, but it's really simple. And then after you do about 7,000 strokes on the brown, no, I'm just kidding. Once you've done it a lot on the brown side, you just do the same thing on the blue, right? And the reason that you do that is because that's a finer grit and it sort of polishes the end a little bit more. And just, like 10 strokes on this side and 4 on this one, and God bless you. And it's sharp. It's really easy. It's super inexpensive. If you're paying, I don't care whether you're paying, well, actually I do. Here's why. Really cheap steel doesn't sharpen. Doesn't sharpen on this, doesn't sharpen on those. Which is why I tell people those bargain knives that are priced too good to be true are too good to be true, okay? But once you get into a mid-priced, fair and reasonable category that's made with real steel, one of the things that I like about Shun is they have so many different price lines within, but they all are made with good steel, so you can sharpen all of them. If you're going to pay anywhere between $50 and $250 for, and some of my knives I paid $2,000 for. I'm crazy and insane, but that's like the handmade, bespoke knife maker category. I don't like to send them out. I'm not sending out my prized possession that I waited 2 years to get from Bob Kramer or any of the famous knife makers around the country. I'm not sending that out. I sharpen it myself. And it's super, super, super sharp. So, what else did I want to say? Oh, cleaning shrimp. Here's why you use a very sharp knife. If I use a dull knife, and I'm going to illustrate with the back of this, I know what I'm doing, but just think about this. If I try to cut a shrimp shell with the back end of the knife, that shell is hard. And it's curved, so what happens? Whoops, whoops, whoops. And now I'm walking around the kitchen like this. Help me, I'm bleeding everywhere, right? Don't do that. A very, very sharp knife, and I will actually, if I only have a chef's knife, I'll choke up like this, but that's why I have sharp little paring knives, which I will also use. Not sharp. And the reason why I will choke up is I want to use the first 1/4 inch of that, and I want to go right there in between the first and second pieces of shell, right? And then it goes right through, and very safely, by the way, right? Because I have my thumb there. Anyone who's ever played baseball, you know, the first thing the coaches tell you when you're 6 years old, choke up on the bat so you have more control over the head of the bat, right? The fat part, right? So easy to butcher and then rinse and get any vein out. Of course, this one didn't have any vein at all. Lucky me. Super, super, super simple, right? I want to show you one more time. Always with a sharp knife. I'll do it with this one. And I'm holding it firm with my left hand, but I don't feel like I'm in any danger of cutting myself, like zero. You know when I'm in danger of cutting myself, where I'm kind of scared? I'm scared when I'm using a dull knife, and I'm like, oh, I'm trying to force it, it's not going in, oh my God, I can't cut, and then boop, and it creates a really painful cut. It is not a wife's, it's not an old piece of mythology that better to be cut with a sharp knife than a dull one. It's true. It knits together better. It heals faster. Cleans easy. I mean, there's a million and one reasons. Sharp knives work better in the kitchen. Your performance is increased. You actually will have less of a chance of cutting yourself because the knife actually goes into food. So, thus endeth the lesson. We got any questions or comments or criticisms? We got a couple minutes left while I snack on homemade blue cheese dressing and firecracker shrimp. By the way, I think I made this today for 2 reasons. One, Madeline suggested I do, and I always do what I'm told. But 2, because it's one of my favorite things to eat in the whole world.
We always devein our shrimp, correct?
Always. I mean, I only buy wild-caught shrimp. There's a handful of people around the world doing shrimp aquaculture the right way. If I can support them, I do, because I think it's healthier for our oceans. But even a good aquaculture system will broadcast feed their shrimp the right kind of food, so they're actually eating something. So there is a digestion line, and I don't want any bitterness or stuff associated with some of the foods in there. In aquaculture raised shrimp, there's going to be and these clearly were, because I had 2 in a row that had no vein. Wild caught shrimp, that would never be the case. Your odds just aren't that good. I just like to take that piece out because I don't want to risk having any bitterness in there.
All right. Where do you buy seafood in Minneapolis?
Oh, a lot of places, but primarily I'm a Coastal Seafoods customer, have been for decades.
fan that really appreciates the time and care taken. You really enjoy this, and it's not just a job. That much is obvious.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really nice. I like hearing that. I'm a chef on television. I used to be a chef in a restaurant, but now I primarily do television. I still own restaurants. I'm still in the restaurant business, but primarily TV, which means I have a huge ego and no self-esteem at all. So that was really kind.
Where did you learn your knife skills?
The same way I got to Carnegie Hall. Practice, practice, practice. It's a great question. I tell people all the time, if you like to cook, cut a head of celery this way every other day. Cut a pile of onions every other day. Cut a half bag of carrots every other day. Save it in the freezer or the fridge. Make soup. Do all kinds of, you can just make mirepoix and freeze it. So you always have celery, carrot, and onion diced and brunoise in your fridge. It won't go to waste. But if you did that for a week, it will take you, you will literally cut your prep time in half. You have to practice cutting. There's no one, here's the thing. I have a friend. He likes to golf. I say, do you love to golf or do you like it? He goes, I love to golf. I said, how often do you practice? He's like, every day. I said, even in winter? He goes, yeah, because I have one of those stupid little putting things at home and I go to the driving range and they just, golfers just work on their shit. You ask cooks, home cooks, I'm like, do you like to cook? They're like, I don't like to cook. I love it. And I say, how often do you practice your knife skills? And they're like, what do you mean? I mean, I'm speaking French to a cannibal. I'm off. I've got my metaphors reversed. I'm speaking cannibal to a French person. Well, that would work. But you get what I'm saying, right? I mean, you got to practice your stuff. And if you do that, I mean, look, I've been cutting vegetables since I was 10 with my mom. She would make, 100 pounds of ratatouille out of the garden every year, and I had to cut all of that grapefruit and other stuff, and it was just crazy. Grapefruit, eggplant. I can't talk today. I just had to cut vegetables all the time. That's what my mom would let me help. But I'm so grateful now because my knife skills, I have good knife skills. Fantastic. Here's the deal. I love you people. Make the Firecracker Shrimp. What else am I doing this week, Abby? Subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to our newsletter, tell your friends about it. In a couple thousand more people, we're going to start our countdown to 1 million contest on Instagram. Everything's short. We may actually just fly a winner in here, and I'm going to cook with them on AZ Cooks Instagram Live edition. Something like, we're going to have an insane prize. So we should be there in a couple of weeks to announce this, but tell your friends to follow us on Instagram.